and maybe we'll even be able to get you out a little bit early, because I think everyone else is already outside. But just give you a brief what we're going to go through. Sam and I both work on the KeyCite team back at West. I'm responsible. I'll introduce Sam first. Sam's responsible for all the content that comes into KeyCite. And a bit of what we're going to do is go over what we've done in the recent past and kind of where KeyCite's headed here. And feel free to stop us and ask any questions as we go through. But with that, everyone in the KeyCite group is just a little bit different. I don't know why this seems to be the case, but Sam's a professional musician. So when he's not doing KeyCite, he's performing and getting paid for doing stuff like that. But you'll see his theme come through our presentation. He always has to mix music in as we go. Sam's been at West for about 8 years. He's a query editor, if any of you ever called, or not, he was a reference attorney if any of you ever called in and got help. And then went into our product quality area that actually tests everything as it's headed out in KeyCite. And Sam's been in KeyCite now for about the last year and a half. And once again, he's responsible for all the content that comes into KeyCite.
Well, I'll go ahead and introduce John. John is the manager for all of the KeyCite development. So the work on content kind of covers everything. John actually has a couple of interesting aspects. He is quite the equestrian. He lives south of Minneapolis in a town called Northfield, Minnesota. And he has sort of a mini ranch down there with a bunch of horses. And so when he's not working on KeyCite, he's down in his estate with all of his horses. I just live in the city, so can't really relate to that too much. John also, turns out, another little known fact, he actually has 7 kids. So you might be wondering, well, where does John get the time to come out and do these presentations and manage all of KeyCite development? Well, when you think about it, you have 7 kids, not that I know, but you'd have to be pretty organized, and you have to be good at indexing things, and that's essentially what KeyCite's all about. It's about sort of being organized and organizing information. John actually, just another quick couple facts, John has quite an extensive background as well. He started out in the editorial area in West, and then he was in the reference attorneys, and that's where we first met. And then he's been in KeyCite for the last few years. He's been here next year. So he's got quite a background, and he'll be displaying that as we go through the presentation.
Now, as we go through, one of the things that we're going to be doing is talking about mixing the editorial work that West does together with technology, and that's a lot of what KeyCite's about. So if there are any questions you have about where does technology start and begin, and where's the editorial work, feel free to stop, and we can actually break products down and try to give you an idea of how they're built and everything like that. But with that, authority always wins. Wes has been in the business of publishing legal material for about 125 years, writing head notes, breaking legal issues out, and keeping history in the synopsises of cases and the digest. And so as we go through here, we're going to take a look at a couple different types of authority. We have political authority, moral authority, and now we switch over.
Royal authority, and then of course, brace yourself, the ultimate authority. The king. So, there's also, as we know, persuasive authority. And this I actually got off the DVD version this morning. It's the director's cut. And of course, binding authority.
This is the worst joke. I don't know why you like it.
On this. No. West has been in the business of binding authority for over 125 years. Got a few at least. We also, out of the West Publishing Archives, have a picture here, the mystery picture. So the questions are, who is this or what is this? Is it knowledge management in 1909? Is it President William Taft counting chads? Is it an advertisement for a file cabinet shop? Or is it a West editor saying, I can't wait until we go to Westlaw? Or John Medin's desk? You make the call. But basically, it's a little joke here, but it underlines the basic theme that accessing authority a lot of times can feel exactly like that. A big pile of information, and it's hard to know where you're going to start, where you're going to, or where you are at the moment. But we believe that the key is to bring technology together with authority to build the space shuttle. And by combining technology and authority, we are able to, jumping ahead, we're able to deliver the most authoritative citator, case verification tool, as well as just an overall legal tool to help you with your legal research, and that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Now to start, where does the editorial work come in? Where does the technology come in? West editors have always done history, and so we just want to make sure everyone understands. It's always been the case that all history's been done by editors. And that's what I did when I started with West. And actually every case that comes through goes through several layers of editorial work. We have a group called the query editors, and they do the first pass at history. That's all they do. And that's how we get the 1 to 4 hour currency for direct history. And then as they turn it over, other things have to happen to the cases, like head notes are written and things like that. And that's where the negative, they catch all the negative indirect history and then go back over the direct history. That's how we get the severe negative indirect, like abrogating, overruling, things like that, are on within 24 hours. And as the head notes are written over the next 2-3 days, we get the rest of the negative indirect history, like distinguished and things like that. Okay, now technology, where we use that is for things like quotation marks. There are some things that computers can do better than people. When you go through KeyCite now, a couple of different marks that you'll see, for instance, these purple quote marks. When we recognize a quotation, what we actually do is we have a program that goes through, and we'll take that quote, we'll take the text, and we'll go out and actually run it against the target document, the document that it's cited to, and we'll verify that it's a quote. Only if it's a word-for-word match are you going to get those purple quotes. Well, right away there's something that helps you kind of start funneling your legal research. When you get to a case like Gore versus BMW that has thousands of citing references, U.S. Supreme Court decision, things like this can start helping you get to what are the opinions that really are focusing in on that case, that really cite that case and are focusing on it. Then we have depth of treatment stars. Programs are very good at being able to count text and how many times things are cited. So we have things like the stars. 4 stars will right away let you know that it's been cited for at least a full text or more. 3 stars, anything from a paragraph up to a page and then down from there, with a 1 star just being a string cite. But here are some things programs do very well. Things that they don't do well are history. That's why we have editors doing that. And of course the flags are all tied to what the editors are saying is going on. So the only thing that we use here really by program is if, for instance, Oregon said they abrogated a case, or if they use some real strong language like recognizing abrogation, we'll never allow an out-of-state jurisdiction to post a red flag on something from another state. So we do things like we'll override what the editors are saying to not let out-of-jurisdiction postings. But there's one of the differences of how we use editorial and technology. With that, we're going to show you one of the first things that we released. Now it's been out there for about a year, and it's really been a big hit. It's called Most Cited Cases. Now, where Wes has been in the process of writing all these head notes over the many years, what we have been able to do is we store all those relationships along with citing combinations in the database that sits behind the scenes called the KeyCite database. And so what I can do, for instance, if I start out and I'm doing research here in Illinois, and I pick a case and I find a case that's right on point, it's got a head note right on point, if I click on the Most Cited Cases, it brings me into our online digest where I can make some choices here. Right away, it ties to my password, so it assumes I'm going to be looking for cases that are most cited for this legal issue in my jurisdiction. But say I'm from Illinois and I'm going to be practicing in Minnesota, I can go and change that and say I only am going to be looking for cases from Minnesota. Once you click go there, what you get back is a descending order of all the decisions and telling you how many times it's been cited for that legal issue, all the way down to 0. And we use everything that's in the digest. But here, just in a very quick snap of the fingers or a click of the mouse, we know that Heckler versus Cheney is the most popular case, at least by the fact that it's been cited the most for this legal issue. And some of the other things that KeyCite does, like bringing the flags and everything to the forefront, we know it might be cited 112 times for negative reasons, but it's just a couple indicators, again, trying to make legal research very quick for students and for practicing attorneys, everything. but it's just a different way. Really what KeyCite's been about is changing some of the ways that legal research is even done. Before, to do this kind of research, you'd have to start with your key case, you'd have to see what it cited, go pull up all those cases, find what they cited, and then kind of complete the whole circle. Now there's tools like this that allow you to do that very fast.
And also, just to point out, also analytical references as well down at the bottom of that list. KeyCite Notes is just a little different variation here. We'll see if we can sort of set out the difference. But as John just explained, let's say we had an attorney or a student who was used to an Illinois case that was great for a point of law, and then they're trying to find law somewhere else. So they're trying to basically expand their research with most-cited cases. KeyCite Notes allows that person then to go in, and let's say that they have found a case that's very much on point with a point of law in the headnote. They can refine their results to citing references that are citing to points of law in that particular headnote. So for example, on the screen here, we have a case, and if we were interested in the point of law in this headnote here, and wanted to find citing references to that point of law, we could click on this icon, the KeyCite Notes icon at the top. Or if we were in the text of the case, we would also see a little icon there that we could click on there. And what that's going to do is take us up to a screen that's going to essentially give us a quick snapshot of what kind of materials there are that cite to that point of law. So in this case, we have some cases, some administrative materials, treatises, law reviews, and journals. So we can see there, and we can actually kind of uncollapse that, for lack of a better term, and pull up a specific listing. So here we have treatises and encyclopedias, and we can see the titles for everything that we're interested that comes up. Now the advantage here is, for a law student, they can just see that, and it kind of gets them in the mode of being able to tell just at a quick glance what they're going to have. But also when they then go into a firm, if they're in transactional billing, this gives them the chance to look and see what they have before they've even gotten billed for anything yet. And so they're able to see, and then they can choose right from that list by clicking on those boxes. And then that boils down a result. I know it's kind of hard to see on the screen, but where we have 373 documents originally citing, this boiled it down to just 27 or to 7 that are citing to that point of law. Again, we have some administrative materials and secondary sources. And from here, they could jump right into those sources and pull those up. And so, again, the KeyCite Notes, most-cited cases, KeyCite Notes allows us to just refine a little more to find things citing to our point of law in that case. And
most-cited cases, on the other hand, does not care about the case that you came from. All it cares is that a case is on a particular legal issue, where KeyCite Notes is really a limited view of KeyCite, a way to see what you're going to get in KeyCite before you get billed for it. Locate. This is actually a product that we but modeled, our, use the right word, our very worthy competitors came out with Focus. And it was very popular. And we got a lot of requests. So Locate is just a way to limit down your result by being able to apply words against your citing reference list. If you want to just jump ahead here. It gives you the ability to, once you have a KeyCite result that could be huge, could be 5,000 citing references or whatever, you could go in and ask for very specific terms. One thing I'll point out that we do that's very handy is we allow you right from the beginning to force those terms to come up in the same paragraph as the cited document. It makes sure that the terms that you're using are actually in relationship to the cited case. So if you were to do it, here we've gone down to 27 out of the 278, and what you'd know is all these have the cited relationship, and of course you see the purple quotes and the stars, which will then also again help you win it down the number that you're going to be looking at. And if you click on them, it comes up and it has highlighted the terms, and you'll notice that these are set out within a paragraph. KeyCite Alert is actually something we released many years, well, not many years ago, but back in, I think it was it 97?
99.
No, 99.
Yeah, I think it's 99.
But it allows you to enter in a citation, And then from that citation, we can help monitor for you what's going on with that citation. This is something that's open for all students. Students all have access to it. It's very handy. You can control the frequency that's something that we're going to run it. And we've designed it so it goes all the way up to continuous. So for someone that's going to be headed into court, and they need to know for sure, it's a big litigation that's going on, they can set this up. And it even goes to the place of now you can have it come to your phone. I'll just bring this out for any of those who are techies here. You're actually looking at a KeyCite result on phone if you care. We're kind of waiting for the perfect marketing time to come up where someone's headed into court that morning. They feel they're going to lose. And here we're sitting monitoring for them every few minutes behind the scenes, and all of a sudden it goes off, and the attorney stands up and says, "Judge, you have to decide for me. The case that my opponent's relying on was just reversed." We have a feeling we're going to be waiting for that example. But the point is the technology is fully there to do it. That's a fully working product. And some of the other things that we've learned now from large law firms is I really encourage students to have PDAs and things like that. I think it was, now we're up to about, out of the top 250 firms, over 50% in the first 3 years of them really being available now issue PDAs to their attorneys. And I think just to stay competitive and everything, because of course all these can be delivered to the wireless PDAs. You get them to the Palm 7s, and we both have iPACs. You can get them to your iPACs and other devices. I really encourage the students to push and keep using technology themselves so they stay competitive. They have great machines now. Our iPACs are 64 megs of RAM. I mean, they're bigger than the computers that I had when I was in high school, much bigger. I can play live music. One of our other guys in the KeyCite group actually has like 7 CDs, and I can download his CDs and listen to them on my Palm as I go about, as I'm also going over my KeyCite results. So just an interesting little fact and thing that I've encouraged students to keep themselves savvy in technology. I think code notes I'll just brush through really quickly. We want to get to the end. We actually have some things that we're headed to doing that we might want to get some feedback from you on. When we came out with code notes, what this is it's a feature that lets you know when statutes are held unconstitutional or preempted. We actually have 25 different treatments. But here's one of the things that West used, editorial, and really tied technology close together with it when we released this product. What happens is when one of our head note writers gets a case that has a non-constitutional issue, they write a special head note for it. It's the very last head note. It's called the code note. And it's just a scene here. And what they do is they'll take, say, even if a judge says, we hold all of Title 12 or something like that unconstitutional, or all of Chapter 6 of Title 12, something like that, our editors will actually go through and break out every individual section that affects, and they'll list it out right here. When they do that, and the document goes through the load process coming on Westlaw, which happens within minutes of them doing that work, it will move this and actually put a posting on the statute that lets you know that it's been held unconstitutional. Put a red flag on there. Now, when we were dealing with this, citators typically are static. Once a relationship enters into them, it's always that case. If a case is reversed, it's always reversed. It always has a red flag on it. Statutes were different. You can have the cite stated the same with the text changing, or the text staying the same with the cite changes. So we didn't want to leave red flags sitting out there into perpetuity. So what we did when we came up with this is, now say they click on this and they can pull up the statute and they go to the red flag and they get their KeyCite result. Once a new public law comes in that updates that statute, we automatically it triggers an email to go to the editor that's responsible for that state. And at the same time it's sending an email to that editor of that state, it changes the language. It will go from held unconstitutional to prior version held unconstitutional. Once that change is made, then the editor can make the decision to go back and say, well, really this public law update was in the process before that unconstitutional issue ever came up and it wasn't corrected. They can go bump it back up to a red flag. Or if, on the other hand, they know for sure that the unconstitutional issue was corrected, they can just remove the flag at that point. But when we built this, we made sure that all the human interaction was built very closely also with technology, so we can send off all these automatic emails and things like that that make us keep the product really current.
So now we move into, I know we're at a technology conference, and we're talking about technology, but we'd be a little remiss if we didn't just brush on some of the content that we've added as well, because the citator, or a legal tool, is really going to be only as good as the content that it covers. So I wanted to highlight, especially since this is what I work on too, is get this in there. A few things that we've done over the last year. We've really focused a great deal on administrative content. So we've released things like the FERC decisions, FCC, SEC releases, and we've also focused, a big highlight in the last year, are the 700 plus law reviews that we now have available for key citing. Basically, we've always had law reviews as citing references. That is, you could key cite an Illinois case and get an Illinois law review citing that case. But now we have the possibility, or we now have the ability, is you can key cite that law review and actually give references citing to the law review. So if you key cite an Illinois law review article, you can see Harvard and some of those other big fancy schools citing to the various schools in Illinois. We've also focused a great deal of attention in the tax area. And I won't go into every thing that we've released, because it's sort of a tax alphabet soup here with all of these materials. But there's the, for anyone familiar with tax, which is, it's kind of hard to be real familiar with tax, but especially once every April 15th, it's over. But there's the PLRs, the TAMs, FSAs, SCAs, the revenue procedures, rev procs. So we've released all of those.
TDOs, TDOs.
Yeah, TDOs, DOs, the delegation orders, that's what those are. And in addition to all that primary material, we've also released for tax a number of the top tax treatises that are now available. So the Warren Gorman treatises, RIA, Federal Tax Coordinator, and the Pitker and Eustace. And along with those tax treatises and all of this other primary material, we have also released, we're up to now about 2,500 secondary sources that are available as citing references in KeyCite. And this covers the gamut. It covers everything from major treatises like Norton on bankruptcy and federal practice and procedure, right, Miller, to state-specific materials such as the Illinois practice series, the Colorado practice series, the Texas practice guide, and some of the big California ones. They're helpful for, obviously, for state-specific issues when you're trying to interpret matters of state law. So we really focused in the last year, not just the primary material, but also in delivering a number of secondary materials, and we're continuing to work on that and add more. So now that we've talked about all these great things that we've got out there, all this great technology, our next step is we want to talk a little bit about what we're doing this year. We've still got sort of in the hopper, and then some things even down the road a little farther. So initially, just one more, or I should say content type material I just wanted to touch on that may not be too interesting to anyone who isn't really into intellectual property, but we're working on the patent applications. We have patents available already back to 1970, full coverage to 76, partial before that, granted patents. We're now adding patent applications that have been published by the PTO, and these will be ones where someone has filed for protection internationally. They're now required, the PTO is now required to publish those applications. So we will have those who'll be able to key cite those applications, and we believe this will be very helpful because you'll be able to monitor the status. For example, you'll be able to monitor if you have a granted patent and see if someone else is filing an application and see if they're citing your patent as prior art. And this, we believe, is getting back to what John was talking about with KeyCite Alert. You'll be able to set up alerts and put your patent site in there, and then if there is an application that's published that might implicate or impinge upon your patent, you'll be able to see that. And so again, there's some content and a quick tie-in with some of the technology. And so with that, I'll let John sort of talk here. Now we're going to get into a little more feature type things here.
Well, KeyCite's going to be changing its appearance here in a rather big way in the next year. What we found is that in the past, particularly with students, they never understood what the idea was between the History tab in KeyCite and what the Citing Reference tab was in KeyCite. Basically, you have these two different purposes, and I always think of it in horse terms. I actually ride in a group called the Jesse James Gang because Northfield was famous for putting the end to Jesse James, very lucrative gang at that time. And I ride in this group that does a reenactment every year. And when we ride, we have horses. There's different things for different reasons. Well, when we're in the gang, we all have either quarter horses, Arabs, or thoroughbreds, and that's because we want to get into the bank, and then we want to get the heck out of town. Now, a couple of us get shot and stuff on our way out of town, but that has nothing to do with the horses. The focus is that the horses have a purpose. KeyCite history is kind of like that. People use the History tab when they want to just find out, is what I'm looking at still good law? It's get in there and get out of there. The KeyCite Citations tab on the other side has been this kind of like this big draft horse. I used to race draft horses too, but they're just big and they're slow and there's just lots of power that they can pull. That's kind of like the Citing References tab. It's kind of like one of these big draft horses can pull this plow and it goes through the dirt and it kind of pulls up all the worms. I might not care if my case has been overturned, but say I really need to expound on it. There's secondary sources, there's other things that are in there, and where I'm really stuck in my legal issue, I can pull that plow through there and start weeding out and maybe find something that's more on point than the original case that I started with. So we've had this hard time getting the message out, particularly to students, that there's these two tabs. So what we decided to do is go to a more single focus where everyone will be able to see exactly what we have all at once in the KeyCite display. Now, we're going about this very slow because KeyCite's very important to West, and we don't want to play with how, if we come up with an idea that people don't like, we're not going to do it. So we spent a lot of time out focus grouping this. Sam and I travel around the country interviewing students. Particularly this time, we've started with students, law librarians, and attorneys all to say, how do you want to see this? Well, this is kind of what we're heading towards. Now, if you can't read the screen from where you are, it will basically still have the same types of information. We'll have history sitting up on top. A new thing that you'll see there is something called filed briefs. We're getting a lot of briefs online, so as we have the briefs for the case that's in question, we'll lay those out under the History tab. When we get down to the Citing References, one of the big things that we've heard from people is they want to be able to sort by jurisdiction. This has been something our competitors done, and we've heard that this is something really people like. So what we're looking at doing is being able to allow customers to pick their sort order from their display. And so say I only care about Illinois cases, and I don't care how much discussion there is. In that particular instance, they'd be able to click on sort it by jurisdiction. If instead they really cared how much discussion, they'd be able to still get it in the way that they see it now with all the 4 stars ranked together and all the 3 stars ranked together and down. But we're trying to create more possibilities for how people can see their information. Other thing I'll point out is we have all the counts, so people will be able to tell right away that we have 402 cases that are citing to it. 60 of those would be administrative materials, or 500 are secondary sources, and just providing all the counts down underneath. So once again, that they get a lot of information right up in front before they ever go and start expanding the list. One little thing that you see down here is, of course, since we had the briefs to do the file briefs that involve this litigation up here, we'll also be able to just say, here's all the briefs that have ever cited to this particular case. Just one more way that attorneys can learn to pilfer from other people's work, I guess. Now it's funny, as we've been showing this, we showed this to a bunch of law professors that were in town about a month ago, and we got about a 50-50 split. 50% of people did not want students to be able to see other people's briefs. So we've been playing a little bit with this of if we make that particular part blocked out from students, we're kind of leaning towards not doing that.
It's like the old joke, I can't remember what it is exactly, but student turns in a paper, and professor looks at it and says, yeah, this is a great brief. It's just as good as it was when I wrote it 20 years ago.
But this is kind of what we're looking at for doing in both the case and for statutes. So I'm going to go on to statutes. Here, one thing that you'll see coming is legislative history is going to be hitching up to the statutes, and so that will have its own breakout. As we have the legislative history for a particular statute, we'll let you know right here, and you can link out and get that information. Citing references is probably still going to be close to the same, and then under updating documents, you'll see your unconstitutionals, and then also, of course, the document's been amended, and if that amendment hasn't been codified into the formal site yet. This is what we're going to be doing for statutes. All this you'll see coming in the next year, this particular one. I'll move on. Okay, now this is probably the biggest thing that we're going to make a change coming out here. And I just want to give some qualifications, because the very first time that I showed this, I was in Miami at a librarian luncheon, and I was able to walk people through it. And when we got done, they started clapping and said, "You guys deserve a standing ovation." I thought, this is it. This has been one of my ideas. I'm bringing this back to my boss. This is going to be the best thing. And but I was able to walk people through it. So then we decided we should put all the money into focus groups. We started the focus groups. The very first focus group we went to, also librarians. We popped it up, and the first librarian said, "I hate that." And I started to kind of sink down on my chair, because you're sitting behind this glass wall, and you have like 12 librarians sitting around a table. And so it didn't just end there. About 4 librarians down from that, the next one says, "I hate it worse than you do." And that was kind of how this started. So I want to give you just kind of a warning. What we found happened was within 5 minutes, their opinion had totally changed. There's just one more thing that we're trying to do. Trying to cut technology and show things in a different way. And this one specifically is aimed at students. So, and another thing I want to say, it's an alternative view. So if you don't like it, that's fine. We hope you like it though, so we can keep developing. But you'd be able to click on graphical display, and your history display would change from something that you've been used to in the past to something that looks more like this. So let me just kind of try to explain what we're trying to do here. One is, with the current KeyCite display, it's one-dimensional, along with all other citators. And what gets really hard to do is when you have multiple documents acting on one document, or say 3 documents being consolidated to the Supreme Court, it's really hard to show that relationship, plus show all the other history relationships that are there. This helps us do that, because it gives us multiple dimensions. So let me tell you what's going on here. One, you'll notice is time moves left to right, okay? And then we have going up and down as to the court level. So right now we just have 3 court levels showing. We picture it could be up to 5 when you have administrative going up. There could possibly be 5 levels. But say for like this particular example is a Central District of California decision. And it gets appealed. So right here, we go up and you have the intermediate court. Actually, we've had a couple different views of this. Do we have all the views on this one? That actually will spell out what the lines mean. We've been, like right here. So we can let people know right away what level they're looking at. So I can tell it got appealed, it got remanded, it went up and got reversed by this. The U.S. Supreme Court granted stay and reversed it. So this is a good example where we can show, here's 2 documents that are both relating down to 1. And this makes it a real easy display that way. In old KeyCite, what we'd have to do is put an AND connector in there. So you'd have something that said writ granted, and then the very next line would be and reversed by. And then as we head out here, then you can see right away we're getting remanded down here again. But there's...
What's that green thing?
We were just going to bring that up. So this is one of the alternatives that we're playing around with. When we first started out with, when you're in KeyCite and you KeyCite something now, the one that you KeyCited is always in bold. So we thought, okay, this would be easy, let's bold the box. Well, we bolded the box for the focus groups and no one knew. We actually had the question asked, where are we? So we had to come up with a way to say, where are we? Now, Sam and I came up with this "you are here" thing, like you're at the mall. Now that really offended all of our programmers. So they said, no way. So then they said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make your box yellow. Well, guess what that did to us? The yellow flag that was sitting inside one of the boxes disappeared because the rest of the box was yellow. So we said, yellow's not going to work. What other thing would kind of warn you? Well, red. Red disappears, green disappears, and blue would disappear. So we've been playing with different examples. This is one of them. Another one that we got suggested is putting like a home base. But of course, someone having to understand baseball to get that. These are the different things that we've been trying to do
Just to show you, just again, this was that first.
Now see, here's one where it's slightly shaded different, but that doesn't really stand out as well. You were going to ask a question.
What if you get a case that has a pretty nasty history and like a lot, like a death?
You would scroll.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you scroll. So
Yeah.
Now we have a couple of options there. This is all based on something they call scalable graphics. They tell me where they could make this very small, so you couldn't read. So things like we've been playing with. What's the minimal amount of information you want to see when you go over? Where's the print question?
Oh,
Print is where print will be what we focus group after we validate the idea. We know it has to print, and we know that it's going to go probably sheet by sheet. Maybe even have an option to really reduce things down, so if you want to see a lot of little trees and not be able to read sites. But most people said they want minimal information, which is the site that they get to court, and some kind of indication of what the status of that opinion is. A couple other things, if you click in the box, you get the case. If you click on the flag, you get the KeyCite result for that.
now, this actually, I was going to ask an earlier question on this, but this sort of is a good way to do it. I always teach citators sort of on the old Shepard's, where they call it history and treatment. And I've always quibbled with negative indirect history.
These are, like when we were back at single tab, we've been playing with all sorts of terms. Like for instance, one of the sort orders was sort by order of severity. They didn't understand what severity was. We found out that more people understood direct and indirect, which is exactly what we thought they wouldn't understand because they've been kind of old InstaCite terms. But that's one of the other things that we're focus grouping as we go through, to at least try to get something that's the most intuitive.
Are you going to put in here
Negative
indirect?
No. This will be something that is just for the direct appellate history chain. And actually, that's where some of our testing was coming, because when we started this for the single tab, we said appellate history. Then I think we broke it out to indirect. And people, though, the one thing we did find out uniformly is when we said appellate history, nobody had a clue what we were talking about. History, sometimes you kind of lose appreciation for what all attorneys really know. Because we were going through the focus groups in the single tab, and we were talking about people have been getting lost between the history tab and citing reference tab. One attorney raised his hand, and it was kind of funny. It was on our last day of the focus groups, and we were kind of tired. Everyone just kind of has their head down and knows that they can kind of go over the filming of it later. And the attorney raised his hand and said, "Why would anyone ever care about the history tab of KeyCite?" And everyone kind of jumped up. He thought, and I think it was maybe even Sam from the background said, "Maybe if you're interested in maintaining your license, you care about the history tab." But once again, things don't always hit people as intuitive as we think they are when we develop them. Another good example, we were looking at a product called winning briefs, because we know when all the briefs are there, we know which side won the case. So in the very first set of focus groups, we have this all specced out with its own little thing called winning briefs, and an attorney goes, "What if I lose?" Then it's going to be like, I know it's only winner's brief, but the counter's going to be, "I'm a loser. I had the loser pick." And it didn't just go up the rest of the whole focus group. That kind of the attorney just kept going, "I'm a loser." I'm like, losing brief. So the results that you get out of people aren't always what you expect, and that's kind of a project that we let die really quickly when we saw we were stumbling into that. We still, as you see brief links up here, we still plan on attaching them to briefs also for these decisions. We'll either be above it or below it, so that you'll be able to see all the information basically that we have that resolves around the direct history for the decision all displayed at once. We're also doing this for statutes. We don't have our statute display up right now. All this is going through the patenting process right now. And there were certain things about the statute one that just caused us not to be able to show that. Do you have any other comments on other things we've heard? Is maybe graphical wasn't the best. People didn't think that that was necessarily the best name. We thought flowchart KeyCite was a little bit kind of hard to handle. Graphical kind of struck us a little bit more, but
When you said this is going to be released?
this will be developed. It's being developed now, and I think you'll see it towards the end of next year. Right now, you go through the whole patenting process, to make sure that it doesn't head out to other places and things like that. But this takes some amount of work to do, and we just want to make sure that before we do that work, that the reception, that the people wanting it's actually there. Now, this is not the biggest thing that West has been working on. You're going to be one of the first groups here to see a little bit more on a new product that it's actually in beta now, and it's actually out there in firms. I think the official name is it's going to be released as West KM. It's had different names why it's been in West. But your KeyCite results are going to be changing, and the way that legal research is done will be changing as we start being able to apply more and more technology to the research while we go to the. So when someone starts a research, they do their search, they run it, they get their search result list back. What we're going to be able to do is say this is the first case that comes up. You'll see a little button up here. Now we just call it Atlas right now because that's internal and everything. But actually, every law firm that's involved would have their own logo there. Now, what's that tell them? Well, right away they know that the case is no longer good, but this little icon up here that's going to be attached to their firm's going to say, our firm's actually already addressed this specific case. So if they were to get back there, keep going here.
Yeah, you get you'll see over there.
If they clicked and went to their KeyCite, what you're going to start seeing at the very front of the KeyCite result is going to be the list of that firm's own documents that have already addressed this. So then they're able to link right out there and go back into the document management system for the firm to actually be able to pull up those documents. With things like, for instance, a lot of these things can be turned on and off. The different flag icons will sit in the document. So as they be able to go back and take a look at their document, they know that this had a green C. As they can update this document, we can also tell them the status of it has changed. So we'll be able to highlight for the firm right away, you need to go back, if you're going to reuse this document, these are the parts where the status of it's changed actually. When you first wrote this document, it had a blue H, now it has a red flag. Just one more way to try to help firms be able to do their research faster and hopefully less expensive to the firm.
And one thing is to keep in mind too that the firm's documents are not stored on the big, Briefmaster 5000 database at Western thing. It's all stored on their own system. It's interfaced through there, but no one at West is secretly at night going into reading their briefs because they don't have any access to that, but it's all stored at their end.
All the relationships are stored at their end.
It's all tied into your Westlaw password.
Yeah. So if a person has the password for that firm, they'd be able to see everything. It's funny, one of the first firms that this was done with, the managing partner, of course, is all the other people down below that are actually, working with the thing. He went on and KeyCite a case, and to his surprise, were all the briefs he'd written showing up. And so he called onto their technology areas that someone stole our briefs, and that's when they clued this particular partner into the fact, no, we're part of this here. And then he was just elated to see now the whole firm was able to reuse what he'd done very quickly, and we were pointing markers to let them know that this particular case had been looked at by their firm before. With that, are there any other questions for us?
Is there any editorial process on their briefs? Is it just a full text brief? Or
Yeah, I mean it gets.
Notes or anything in there?
Well. I'll let Pauline. You can speak a little bit probably to that.
That way, we're not actually writing in minutes or anything like that. Sometime in the future, there may be tools to help classify them, so that if you knew that a certain group of documents should be all together under certain terms that are unique to your firm, to do that. But there'd be other ways to classify them by client, matter or other things like that. So that would be out in the future. That's actually something that's going to come early next year.
But all the information gets fielded. Once again, West is right now with all the betas. We're doing this slow. We want to make sure that all the firms that have it, it's working perfectly for them, and we're expanding it slowly. But this is actually out there now being used. Any other questions?
Yeah, when you KeyCite statute and you have those legislative history references, is that going to be more than just you scan, like congressional record?
Yeah, well, yes. Our LH database, we have Arnold and Porter. We have about 20 Arnold and Porter LH databases that are topic specific. But basically, for as far as it goes for the U.S., it's going to be what's in our LH database. And up to a certain date, it's all use scan, and then past that, we go after all the legislative history. And I'm not sure what the crossover date is on that.
I don't know if John knows about this yet, but one that I want to see in there, again, getting back to the tax area. Like we have some like the IRS blue books and so forth that show committee reports discussing a lot of the major tax legislation. That's something I'd like to see in there, and something that I'm hoping that we'll be able to add as well. So
The congressional record, I believe, is going to be in there too.
yeah.
And then for states like California, I think California, a few where there is state-specific
Yeah,
legislative history, all the material from the database CCA would be in it.
So it'll be sort of an ongoing, start with those core materials, but is anything we can get to add in there, and then break those out so you'll be able to tell, like to see, like we were showing you back on the, sort of like the KeyCite Notes, it'll list it out, so you'll be able to see before you go in, like which legislative history material you want to jump to in the tree.
Any other questions or direction or ways that we can help you do your job easier? Any ideas that you have for us? Well, with that, we're free for questions afterwards.
Good.
A little flashlights for you on your way out. You want to grab one?
So thanks a lot for coming today and staying in on this afternoon.